Hey YouTube, HeyC494 here, and right now I have the Primary Arms 4-14 first focal plane 44 millimeter objective lens scope. This is the MilDot scope, and what I'm about to do right now is a scope tracking error test on this scope. I have it mounted on my Ruger American Predator. As an update on this gun, I slicked up the bolt, so now it's a lot smoother and it's got a lot lighter bolt throw. And I put a cheek riser and a scope that's better, in my opinion, on it. I'm also going to be testing out another scope on this gun here very soon. But let's get started. So in order to do this test, what you do is you tape off 100 meters. I actually have my tape measure sitting over there on that table. That's what we measured it off with. And then you measure back to the scope from your target. Sorry. You shoot a group at 100 meters, and then you make a 10 mil adjustment on your scope, and then you shoot another group using the same point of aim, but your point of impact should be 100 centimeters higher. And every centimeter higher or lower is 1% of scope tracking error. And left or right is for cant and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I do not have a bubble level on this one, so we're not going to do that. We're not going to measure my cant. We're only going to measure the elevation. So, the initial group. You son of a... Okay, that's the initial group. Now, I'm going to put 3 rounds in the magazine, and I'm going to make a 10 mil adjustment on the scope. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Alright, so there's my 10 mil adjustment on the scope. Okay, looking through the scope right now, because I can use the scope as a mil relation, I can tell you right now that per what the scope is saying, that's an exactly 10 mils based on this scope. But we might get down there and find out it's 1 centimeter off or something, so we're going to measure it. I'm actually going to go back down to 0 first. All right. One more. All right. Let's go check it out, guys. Alright, so I'm down here at 100 meters away from my scope, and this is the tape measure that I use to measure both the distance and also from my point of impact to point of impact, adjusted and unadjusted. So with the rifle zeroed for 100 yards, my point of impact was a little bit different than my point of aim, so I'm going to show you guys what that was. So down here on the target, my first shot group was bam, bam, and bam. That's probably me. I'm not the greatest shooter in the world or anything like that. I let one get away from me every now and again. So that was my first group because this was my point of aim right here. So then I made my 10 mil adjustment on the scope and boom, shot that group right there. I'm really, really surprised that I shot a group that good with a 10 mil adjustment on the scope, but even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and again, I reckon. So then I made my 10 mil adjustment back down and fired my final shot, and it was right in line with those others. Again, not the greatest shooter in the world. So now, whenever I measured from this point of impact to this point of impact, I had a 99 centimeters. So I had a 1% scope tracking error. That is awesome. I won't even account for that in a firing solution, because I've had, there are other factors that affect your shot more. Like your muzzle velocity variation is going to affect it more than 1% scope tracking error. So anyway, and also for reference, I've had Night Forces that do worse than that before. And I've had Leupold scopes do way worse than that. So this is awesome. For a scope that's sub $300, that is amazing. Hey, C494 out.